Representative, you have 90 seconds for that.
I just would like to say that the last 2 years the legislature has allowed schools to go into some of these funds and pull that money out and use it. SB 111, and I believe the one this year was SB 2117, but I'm not sure. But it allowed those people to take these funds out of these silos, the individual schools, and use them for what they wanted or what they needed to use it for. And some schools used it, most schools did not. Sabetha, I know, did, and some of the other schools in the district did, but I think only like 25% of the schools used that. So.
Thank you very much, Representative Garber. And seeing no indicator for...
I did.
Yes, he did. Okay.
He waved his head there.
Oh, okay. All right. Mr. Stones, you have indicated that you would like a rebuttal, and your 90 seconds begins now. I didn't see that.
The monies that were put into some of these silos, as they call them, or carryover funds, those dollars were there, and this past year we were very lucky because we received payments from the state on time. Prior to that, the first 2 years prior to that, we weren't receiving our payments on time in schools, and all the schools in the state were basically that way. So we had to rely upon those dollars, which really wasn't legal, but they allowed us to do it, the State Department, to be able to make payroll and pay bills every year until the money from the state came, and then at the end of the year everything was kosher and back where it belonged. So most people were reluctant in their districts to put money into that and use those dollars to help pay those bills, or I mean to be added into their budget. They were waiting because they didn't know if they were going to be cut again. I believe it was maybe 3 out of the last 5 years we cut the budgets in the middle of the year. So people were reluctant to use those dollars. Now, we did in our district. We used $300 and some thousand out of the contingency fund to do that, and to pay the bills and for staff and that kind of deal.
All right, Mr. Stones, thank you very much. Our next question comes from Steve Cadu. He is the Kickapoo Nation Tribal Chairman. And where do you stand on the Kickapoo Tribe's proposed Plum Creek Reservoir project? Mr. Stones, it's now your turn. You have 2 minutes to answer that question.
Well, I think in all these cases, we have to gather as much information as we can gather. I think water's water, and we need to find ways to help, whether it be the tribal nation or whatever it might be, or some other community, but we have to try to find ways to make that happen and not put a burden on them as well as on the rest of the people around the area that are losing land maybe, or their water rights and some of those things. We're going to have to be able to come in and sit down and put together some good factual information so we can make good decisions instead of making decisions based on party lines and emotions. I would support trying to find ways to help that issue.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Stones. And Representative, you now have 2 minutes for this question. Where do you stand on the Kickapoo Tribe's proposed Plum Creek Reservoir project?
Well, with the continuing drought conditions in the state and actually in the whole Midwest, throughout maybe the whole country, water conditions it's fast becoming a concern across the state for all sources of water supply because they're diminishing rapidly. No one wants to deny a sufficient and suitable water supply for anyone, including our Native American brothers and sisters. Just a few weeks ago, I attended a meeting with the Kickapoo tribal leaders and Governor Brownback, along with other government officials, and at that time, Governor Brownback assured tribal leaders that the state would continue to monitor the water situation and provide assistance as needed. The Kickapoo tribe's water source is the Delaware River, and the drought has lowered the amount to very low levels. The flow, and the tribe draws water from the river and puts it in a holding basin and treats it so that it's fit for consumption. This has been an ongoing issue, I understand, for several years, and hopefully soon both sides can come to agreement that will be a benefit to all concerned. Now, the Plum Creek question, several years ago, or probably 20 years, this has been going on, and the original plan called for a lake a dam on a lake that would have taken most of some of the land. Most of the land would have been contained in the reservation. It has exploded into a lake that's much larger than it needs to be for uses for RV parks and things like that. So I support the idea, but I do not support the plan as it stands right now.
All right, thank you very much. Seeing no rebuttals here, we will move on to our next question. On this next question, Mike Maddox from Leavenworth asks, would you consider a lessening of penalties for victimless or nonviolent crimes as a possible tax savings measure and an end to drain on the state's prison and court system? Representative, you are now first on this question. You have 2 minutes.
That's a tough question. I am pretty strong for enforcement of our laws. However, our current prison system is full, and we certainly don't want to build more prisons. So I think if we looked at individual crimes, lesser crimes, and maybe reduce the sentence, maybe that would help. But that's a hard question to answer. I would certainly have to talk with many law enforcement officials before I made my final decision, but that is certainly something we could look into to save the state money.
All right, thank you very much, Representative Garber. Same question for Mr. Stones. You will have 2 minutes for this. Would you consider a lessening of penalties for victimless or nonviolent crimes as a possible tax savings measure and to end a drain on the state's prison and court system? 2 minutes.
Well, I would support looking into what might possibly be available, but I am also want to make sure that we support the victims, the people that are being victimized and whatever that might be. But Randy's right. We can't afford to be building more penitentiaries. I believe, our best situation is to hopefully keep kids and young people in school and teach them the right things to do and move in that direction. But I'd support taking a look at it, but I don't know that I would, at this point in time, would be willing to change anything. But we certainly do have to be cognizant of where we're going to put them. We don't have places to put people, and it costs a lot more to confine somebody than it does to educate them. So.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Stones. And Representative Garber has indicated that he would like a rebuttal on this question. And Representative, you have 90 seconds to respond.
I would just like to say that the crime in our country has increased. In my opinion, it is because of the morals of our country. We are losing our children. We're losing generations because of the status quo of, I'm not going to name any specific place in the country, but the morals are decreasing. The idea that there is no God is more prevalent, and when there is no God, there are no morals. So if we could maybe re-educate our kids in some way in that area, that would help us a lot. And again, that's not as much in the rural areas as it is in the urban, I don't think, but we still have our problems out there too.
All right, thank you very much, Representative Garber. And seeing no indication of a rebuttal option, we're going to move on with our time here for our debate, or concluding our debate portion of the race. And each candidate will now have 2 minutes to make a closing statement. And Mr. Stones, you are up first with 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Okay, well, as I said in the beginning, I'm not a career politician. I don't ever plan to be. I finished a career that after 37 years in education, my heart is a lot and still with educating students and trying to do the right things for them. If I'm elected, I will do my best to base all my decisions that I can on as many facts as possible and make it factual, not emotional or on party lines. Yes, I am on the Democratic ticket. I always have voted who I think is going to do the job for the position, and I still believe that. I believe once we get there, we need to become Kansans and start working together. I currently believe that a lot of that is not happening in our leadership areas in the legislature. I think there's a lot of good people down there. They have a really tough job. I have no axes to grind. I've retired and found myself needing to find some other things to do, and I think I have some expertise in budgeting and some leadership roles, and will be able to offer some things to the legislature. That's my goal. I would go down and I'll work hard for the district and the state of Kansas as a whole. I remember 2 years ago Representative Garber saying, you know, I don't like right now the way things are going, and I don't like the way things are going nationally as well as in our state, and like to be able to try to help do something about that. The other thing that was said is that I think we need to do is everybody needs to vote. If you're not going to vote for me, you still need to vote. Everybody needs to get out and exercise their right to vote.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stones. Representative Garber, you have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
I would agree with that, and it's probably not very often you're going to find two people that are not career politicians sitting up here talking. So, because I do not believe that I'm a career politician either. Starting being elected at the age of 60 years old, I don't intend to be here very long. Maybe the Lord has different things for me, thoughts for me, but I don't know. I agree we need to work together. And we saw things, the leadership said they saw things that they hadn't seen in years, or never seen actually, happen this past year. And it wasn't good. And the bad thing about it is most of us down there have no control over it. There was nothing we could do, or we didn't know what to do, let me put it that way, because many of us were first-term legislators in the House. And actually the House had, I think, better cooperation than the other chamber, but that was just my idea because I want to pat myself on the back because I'm in the House, I guess. But anyways, I just believe that we should be more nonpartisan, and I will work towards that if elected. And I agree with Dennis. People need to go out and exercise their right to vote. And I did that because I didn't want to not have a chance to complain after I voted. But I'm glad for the evening and the opportunity to express my views, and I just thank everyone for coming, thank the moderator, and may you all have